Hey, Andy McCabe, how you doing?
Good, Mr. Herring. How are you?
It's been a while, man. We've both been
It's
really, really busy.
it's
It's good to catch up with
I
you.
I want to say it's been has it been 2 years since we really caught up? I think
Yeah, it really has. I
it's
know
too
you.
long,
I
my
know you've
friend.
been busy doing a bunch of different things. I know that, and I'll let you go into that. But tell me what's
Hmm.
up with you.
Life, man. Life is stupid crazy sometimes when you don't. This year, I feel like I'm learning the lesson of if you don't make a decision, life makes it for you.
That is
And
true. That is true. Yes, that is true.
so,
That is a that is a
putting
big
off
truth there, brother.
putting off big like when you don't want to address something
Hmm.
important and something big, and instead of addressing it, you just kind of let it simmer, like I'll get back to that.
Right.
Well, oftentimes that doesn't wait. It's not gonna it's gonna make that decision is gonna be made for you. So now I am restarting my consultancy, Claims Delegates, and going in a whole bunch of different directions. I'm going to start selling advertising into the Rebel Group, of all things. So that
Okay.
might be a hot button, but we'll see.
Boy, yes, hot button. But I-
But
but but
really,
but why not? That's not that's just because it's one thing if you sell out to one group that gives you
sure.
enough revenue to run you.
Mm,
But
mm,
if you're just selling some advertising, it's not affecting you per se. You know what I'm saying?
no, no, I agree. I agree. And the group doesn't cost $0 to run. So I think most people are going to understand. Of course, he's going to sell some advertising in here. Um, of course, this stuff isn't free. And we are giving out, we just crossed over 10,000 members in the Rebel Group.
Yeah. I've always wondered one thing, and I don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers.
What's that?
but but you have a group that has rules, who has sustained members, who has
Mm-hmm.
a lot
Mm-hmm.
of good things going on. Why wouldn't I mean, like, if all they did was pay $1 a month?
Oh, yeah.
I
It's
mean, I'm just saying, like, it's really not that big a deal,
yeah. So what
you
I'm gonna
know.
do is I'm gonna take. So we got the Rebel Replies GPT.
Hmm.
We can talk AI if you want to go down that road today. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that and put it behind a paywall, and that's gonna be the membership level of the Rebels or whatever I call it.
Yep.
And in order to get access to that and everything else, I mean, we've got like thousands and thousands of documents in this group. But I'm going to take them, I'm going to organize them, and I'm going to get them put them behind a paywall, and you got to be a member to go get them. Easy, easy peasy. So
Sounds good.
yeah, why not?
Hey, I have a question for you.
Okay.
It's a theology question.
Mm,
Okay. You have a meme that you put up sometimes that says,
mm.
"Don't ever trust the adjuster or the carrier to act fair or in your best interest." It's something like that.
I think it's don't rely on the carrier or the adjuster to do the right thing without being
I have a
forced or something
theory
like
that
that.
what I read from it and what you mean from it are two separate things.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
What I
Okay.
read from it is, don't trust these money grubbing bastards. They're always going to screw you. Okay.
Mm.
But what I think you're saying what I think you're saying, because I know you, is something different. So what are you saying when you say that?
Well, what I'm saying is we need to be we need to be conscious of who we're dealing with. And in the insurance claim environment, we're not dealing with a person, even though we're talking to an adjuster. We're dealing with a company. Companies don't have souls and companies don't have feelings. And I work on the contractor side, the restoration
Mm-hmm.
contractor side, consumer insured facing mainly. And what we need to understand is this is just business to them. And if they can systematically find a way to reduce claim severity across the board by 35 to 40% simply by getting a third party involved to put together a fake sheet, right? This is just one of the tactics that is used. Um,
Is
that's
that the
showing
peer
that they don't
review? Is
really.
that the peer review?
It's a peer review, yeah, peer review or comp bid. How do you do a comp bid on mitigation when the service has already been rendered? Great question. We can go there. But so what I'm saying is we need to be conscious that we're dealing with an unfeeling, machine in the form of a corporation that runs an insurance company. We can't rely on that machine to look at our best interests. That machine is designed for one purpose, and that's to make money for the insurance company. So no, we can't rely on them to do the right thing without being forced, because if we don't force them, they win. If we don't force them to do the right thing, they save money, and the shareholders are like, great. So that's what I meant, is it's not the adjuster.
Yeah. And that's fair. By the way, I have a thing that I've been getting people to do for a while now, which is loads of fun. When the carrier sends you a peer review, you go get somebody to peer review your paper.
Sure. And that's happening more and more.
And then you send it in and say, I had a peer review done on my estimate. And you know how, like, if we have a carrier adjuster and an insured adjuster, and it basically cancels it out.
Right.
It kind of does the same thing, and they don't expect to get that back that way. And it's a reasonable action.
Sure.
You know, I like the one guy said, he says, yeah, I paid $500 and then charged and put 10 and 10 on it. You know, I mean, hey, yeah, it was a sub. I get to charge 10 and 10 on the subs, right?
But how is that not a pre-appraisal, right? It feels very much like an appraisal.
Well, Andy, what I think is going on, and it is a little different in different places in the world. I mean, if I go to Wisconsin, it's a lot different than Florida. If I, I mean, there's differences everywhere, but
yeah, everything's different in Florida.
On the whole, I see where they're treating the insurance adjusters as glorified estimators.
Mm-hmm.
And they are adjusting the entire loss at the desk.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is a recipe for terrible things, because if you've got, I mean, think about it. If you had you've got a job, like, I'll just use my fire, for example. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have a fire. It's a catastrophic fire. The adjuster that comes in, who I happen to do a bunch of umpire work for, because he's really a top-notch guy. He spends like 5 hours in my house and comes out and puts his phone down on the back of my truck, calls the desk adjuster and says, it's a complete loss. I'm sending you evaluation. Paul Davis comes in and says the same thing. They stay there like 15 minutes, like, we're just going to call a DA. And yet, it took 160 days for them to issue a legitimate payment for the dwelling. And
what was the delay?
And then I don't know. I mean, like, and then when they did send it, they sent most everything I'd put in my interior scope, and they just cut everything on the outside out. So, like, supervision, permitting, engineering, dumpsters. They put trusses in, but they didn't but they took out the crane time.
The crane to put the trusses on.
And so they even removed the fence, but they didn't put the crane in. So I mean, it was just like, it was weirdness, But and then I called the carrier and I said, hey, could you get me $30,000 worth of our contents money, so that we could buy washer, dryer, beds, a couple of couches,
get restarted.
So we don't have to rent it anymore for $4,000 a month, because it's just eating our ALE, right?
Yep.
And she calls me up and she says, you were denied. I'm like, why was I denied? He goes, because your contents claim only came to $13,000
in a total loss fire.
And I'm like, so let me get this straight. I said, do you think, let's just assume that nothing in my house is damaged. Okay. Let's just assume that's true. I said, you just sent me a scope to completely gut my home. I said, do you think it would cost more than $13,000 just to pack it out?
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, oh, yeah, I think so.
I think so.
But I mean, it's like, I mean, like, we could be done with this. And the thing that really concerns me is, I don't know how somebody with a loss that has any complexity, and I'm talking about something bigger than a very tiny water loss or a very simple roof claim. Okay. Anything beyond that, I'm talking probably anything beyond 10 grand, okay, is so complex because of that configuration that I think you have to have some kind of claim help.
You have to. And the fact that it's not built in to the policies at this point,
oh, I know.
It's glaringly, it's an omission. It's an omission that needs to be fixed nationwide. Because you're right. People can't handle their own claims. I mean, I see guys that think they can, and they'll wait 3 or 4 months into a claim before they get a hold of somebody like me. And then once they get a hold of me, I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't untie the knot you just tied. I can't. If you would have called me 3 months ago, we could have had this thing back on the rails and going. But now it's too late. You've already said too many dumb things that have locked yourself out of thousands of dollars. Yeah. So yeah, no one should have to handle their claim by themselves.
Right. And I think you know how they do in Australia is
I don't.
Okay, well, first of all, when you have a claim, you have to hire a public advocate. That public advocate is the only one who can file a claim. They're the only one who can file a claim.
Oh,
so they file a claim. So you have a professional filing a claim on your behalf. So all the things that happen right at that moment, the bad data loss, the calling it the wrong kind of loss, saying it's, characterizing it some way that it's not, just whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
You can also tell them if it's like a below deductible kind of a thing, right?
Right.
Like you don't want to do this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, once he files that claim, they don't have independent adjusters that go sit at TPAs. They have independent adjusters that are kind of pseudo public employees.
Okay.
And you hit a button and one drops out.
Oh, really? Just like
okay. Yeah, you're just like, I just want one. You pull one out at random, okay? Whoever's next in the list, right?
Okay.
So yes, that person's working for the carrier.
This is on the carrier. This on the carrier side.
Yeah. So you have the insurance, the insurance advocate and the public advocate.
But they're just on the automatic feeder, though. Okay.
Yeah. But you have this thing where only claims professionals are talking about the claim.
Mm-hmm.
No insured is talking about the claim. That you think
Absolutely.
that fixes a lot of problems. These guys meet and come up with an uncontested scope within 5 days.
Legally required.
They ACH the money to the carrier ACHs the money to the insured, and the public advocate turns to the insured and says, hey, if you need more money, just give me a call and I'll call such and such and we'll get over here and handle it. And they rinse and repeat and do it again. So it's not that there's no legal stuff that happens there and there's no problems, because there are still problems. But they're just not the same. And part of it is like they let the adjusters adjust. That's really it. The adjuster actually in their laws is seen as the field adjuster has the authority. The carrier has the authority over policy.
Is there a parallel in that to the UK?
No. The UK is almost as screwed up as we are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought since Australia started as a colony, it might be. Anyway. Okay.
No, nothing like that. No, it's so. But I mean, I think we could do something like that. But I think we ought to have
easily.
I personally think we ought to take like an insurance policy and say, hey, I want you to add $500 to the cost of the insurance policy, and that covers your PA, your consultant, your claims consultant, your what all the things, maybe even place for appraisal, but it handles whatever comes, because
so it's an insurance policy inside the insurance policy for claims handling expenses.
Yeah, so like legitimate claims handling expenses. Like why not? Right. You could charge me for it.
Sure.
By the way, I got Steve Badger I got Steve Badger really mad at me when I said
he loves me.
I was wondering if I could get a policy with my insurance company where I could pay a premium for them to handle my claim quickly.
And I saw that.
And then I thought, like if I go get a hamburger and fries, that's like kind of like charging for ketchup.
Mm-hmm.
It probably wouldn't work. And he got.
But it's legit.
I mean, it was. Yeah. I mean, I think so. I mean, it's let me tell you a couple of themes that I'm finding here in the industry.
Lately, or just in general?
Lately. Number one, I'm finding that the company that used to be Ladder now,
Mm-hmm.
and got in all kind of trouble doing all kind of nastiness with Tower Hill.
Pretending to be adjusters and engineers at the same time.
Yes. And they got such a black eye that they changed their name to Seek now, and they have an app.
Oh.
And so they could get like an Uber driver to load up the app and walk into this loss and go click, 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 click. And then guess what they do with that inspection? They send it to the desk adjuster.
The desk adjuster. And they're trying
so
to do
they
everything
do
remote.
it for a lot less than what the adjuster does it.
A lot
they're
less.
Saving a boatload of money, but you go all on the Western Seaboard, and they're everywhere. Like there's adjusters like seasoned good adjusters in California who aren't getting any work because these stupid 1099 monkeys are out there. Yeah,
it's DoorDash.
and
well,
it's
that's the way it's going. Yeah, so I think it should be required legally that a licensed adjuster appear on the loss site before adjusting the claim.
Yeah,
that would eliminate so much.
But that seems to be that they seem to be coming after their own. That's why, and the trend that I'm noticing because of that,
they're cannibalizing themselves.
Is these like these good IAs that they have are flipping the script and becoming public adjusters like fast.
Of course they are. Because they have to.
Well, I mean, it's just I mean, granted
that feed their family.
You play with that dog, it does bite.
Yes.
I mean, it really does.
It really does.
Yeah. I think that what's been really weird to me is how, like, even on appraisal, even with some PAs, even with some mitigation companies, just all over the market, we have all these people who are working for their lunch money. Like the guy who goes out and does an appraisal for $750. Like that guy is dangerous. He
to himself and others.
He can't spend any time on your job because he will go broke.
He can't afford to.
Yeah, you take the mitigation guys who don't want to fight with the carrier. So they go in and do 3 days worth of drying and write their $6,000 bill and walk and know that it's not done.
Yeah, of course they know.
Say they can't do anything else because they think like go out of business. And it's a cruelty, and I understand why they do it, but at the same time, man, it is still true if you document your loss, it gets paid.
Is it? Is it though?
It is. I didn't say it would get paid quickly.
Okay. Thank you for that. So let's talk appraisal. So I came up with this idea that since the appraisal process is so damn skewed and so damn run by, well, first off, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. One, who runs the appraisal process today? In general,
the carrier sets the parameters really by policy.
The carrier. Okay, so when you go to an appraisal, who you're going to get as an umpire and opposing in general? What type of people? What kind of background do these people have?
They're going to be insurance adjusters.
They're going to be insurance adjusters. They're going to be ex-adjusters or ex-general adjusters or IAs, or probably current IAs and general adjusters moonlighting or doing whatever else, doing appraisals on the side.
Right.
And currently, what we have is I think someone referred to it as a cabal. And we have this good old boys cabal of I know you, you know me. We're going into this situation. It's almost like an assumed thing. And
that's the appraisal mafia.
Yes.
That's the appraisal mafia. See,
not cabal, mafia.
Hey, the one characteristic when you want to know who the mafia is, the mafia believes that they deserve it.
Oh, it's theirs.
This is mine. It's mine.
They've earned it.
I am supposed to be here. Yes.
They are anointed.
Anointed. That's right. That's right.
So here's my idea. I don't have another question for you. Here's my idea. Why don't we get a whole bunch of restorers who are getting the crappy end of that appraisal stick on a daily basis? Why don't we just get a whole bunch of those guys in every major market to become appraisers and educate them on the appraisal process so they can come in with at least a fighting chance into this very biased and skewed.
Sure. No, I mean, here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, yeah. Well, here's the thing. Appraisal, where it's not completely messed up, is a way to change all the characters that are in the appraisal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
in the claim.
Yeah. And so, like in the claim. And so it's, we often say, things are always going to get different, and different is often better. Not always, but often.
Mm-hmm.
It's often better in appraisal. Like, it's often much better than what you had. Like if I go into an appraisal and the appraisal doesn't raise at least 80 or 90%, I think probably something's wrong. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I've had some 0 appraisals for good reason. Okay. But I mean, like, but here's the thing. I know some guys who do that and do real well with it, because it keeps
do what? Appraisal in general?
Well, what they do is, when they go in to see Miss Smith the first time, they say, Miss Smith, this is how we're going to do this, and I want you to sign this pre-appraisal. I want you to pre-assign me as an appraiser.
Right out of the gate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is this a contractor or?
It's the contractor.
No, it's can a contractor be an appraiser on their own claim? Really? That doesn't seem very unbiased. That doesn't sound very disinterested.
I didn't say you could do it all the time, but you could do it sometimes.
Sometimes.
No, okay. But you could do it. Okay. I mean, in a lot of cases you could do it, but or get a contract where you say, if I choose to go to appraisal, you say yes. You pre-agree to go to appraisal. So at the moment, the trigger.
Okay.
So at the moment, the carrier's like, I'm not paying you anymore. Okay, and you just go say, Miss Smith, send this letter.
Yeah.
And now I've just taken that bad character and just out of the mix.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the adjuster's gone at that point.
Yeah. And so on that basis, it works pretty good.
Except for the fact that it costs thousands of dollars.
This is true.
Well, I don't do a whole bunch of appraisals. I'm hoping to do way more appraisals. But I'm seeing, like, the cost of the appraisal, the cost to both parties, is more than oftentimes it's more than the delta of the disagreement. And I think I see situations, I think the carriers know this, and they're punishing contractors by sending small delta disagreement claims to appraisal. And there's no recourse to that.
Okay. Well, I can fix that easy. That's easy to fix.
Okay.
The delta is not all you're talking about. That's just what you were negotiating with. Okay. Like, let me ask you, Andy, could you go to any restorer you wanted to? I mean, any, and go watch their job and not have 20% more for them to charge for?
Oh, me? Yeah, absolutely. You? Yeah. Just because we know.
What I'm saying in appraisal, we should do that. We should figure out what the actual scope is.
Yeah.
So instead of working from this negotiated position.
Yeah. Okay.
Look, I had one where somebody did that. The last offer the contractor had given was $135.
Okay. Yep.
The appraisal closed down at $273
because it was the right number. Because the scope was the scope.
Yeah. Incidentally, this was David Sweet, and David Sweet. I mean, we all know girth matters.
It does, especially when it comes to claim files. Yes.
Yeah. And so I mean, like, no, he put me in a box where he did the funniest thing to me ever. I was looking through his stuff and I'm like, look, I really don't like the supervision number. And he goes, I didn't either. That's why I took the appropriate supervision and cut it by 80%. That's what you're seeing there. Could I cut it then?
Ouch. Ouch.
I
No,
mean,
you
I'm
couldn't.
completely
No.
blocked.
Yeah, you're done. Yeah, you were not.
Yes, but no.
Yeah,
What I'm
that's
saying
good.
though
I like.
is the other thing. The other thing is if these guys will be really well, do really good about documenting and really good about demanding appropriate amounts for their work, then when they
Mm,
flip it to appraisal, it's easier to handle. But it also, once they've done that a dozen times, they start paying your bills faster.
yeah, they do. They do.
And
They see you
and
coming.
because you're not being a jerk. You're just like, no, we'll just work this out some other way. Don't worry about it. I know you can't do
Yeah,
anything. I know you can't
I've
work
said
this
that.
out.
I've said that so many times to so many restorers that at first, when you do something different, right, you're gonna change your contract. You're gonna take a different tack when it comes to claims. At first, it's going to be really, really hard. Yeah, like even something as simple as modifying the base rate Xactimate pricing to better fit your business needs, right? That
Mm-hmm.
when you start doing that at first, you're going to get massive resistance. But the more times you fight it, the quicker you're going to get paid on it. And eventually, those adjusters that are going to see you again aren't going to want to hassle with that argument again. And you're going to get paid on your custom pricing. But it's so hard up front, and people don't have the stick-to-itiveness to get through that. And oftentimes, that stick-to-itiveness includes having enough money in the bank to survive not being paid on a lot of jobs, which is the rub.
Yeah, I think they could do a couple of things that aren't very hard. That aren't very hard
All
at
right, what are
all.
those?
Um, Publish your rates in your stupid contract. Publish your rates in your contract. You know, I had a
Duh.
mitigation
Yes. Yes.
contractor on my own
I
loss, and they
yes.
published their rates, and their baseline tech was $89.95.
Okay.
Their
In the contract.
senior tech was
Yeah.
about a 170,
Okay.
and my carrier paid for it because it's in the damn contract.
Mm-hmm. That's
Okay,
so.
and it does make a difference as if in the contract, and you should also put interest in the contract.
Yes. And
Because the
carrying
simple
costs.
fact is, the simple fact is, if you land that thing in appraisal and you have it
That
all
it
contracted
pays.
appropriately, it becomes
Mm-hmm.
really hard. You know what I tell guys to do in the restores game all the time, and I've probably told 1,000 of these guys to do it, and there's like 2 that do it. Okay, okay, and
Welcome to my world.
this is the easiest thing on earth. Okay, you go to the job today. You get called to the job, you go to the job. When you leave the job, in the nighttime, you write a note. The first day, at some point before midnight, you write a note to the adjuster that says, we were called to this claim at this location at this time for this today. We arrived at such and such time. We found such and such. We began to do this work. Okay.
Okay.
And then it says, we expect to be working at this for 3 days before we reassess because we may need a little longer. Our burn rate today is blank. Our burn rate tomorrow should be around blank. Our burn rate the following day should be around blank. Okay. Now, and then you say, if you would like to discuss this with me, view the loss, have any, call me, email me, whatever the case may be, I will be here at 8 a.m. Guess what? If you ever land in my lap as me umpire or me as appraisal, you're getting paid because you gave them notice. You gave them notice that they were incurring a cost.
Yeah. And if you have late fees in your contract and the appraisal process takes another year, at least you're getting something because that late fee applies to the whole duration of when that debt was owed.
Well, and the other thing that people don't recognize is like in most states, there's statutory interest.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
but you got to go
even
file suit to do that.
Not necessarily. In most places, it's called prejudgment interest.
Okay.
Like in Florida, we have prejudgment interest. You just say, I'd like my statutory prejudgment interest, please. And they send it to you. Yeah. True story. But
wow.
But no, they need to get.
No one knows to ask for that.
But my point is simply this: if nobody's putting it in their contract and nobody's publishing their rates, then what they're doing is they're just being a proceeds contractor.
Yeah, and the contract is arguably invalid.
Right. I mean, it's
not a valid contract because there's no consideration.
Right. And, I mean, like And the other thing is the restorers have got to stop making, they've got to stop making all their money on equipment and actually make money on their labor and on their equipment. Because see, that's what businesses do. They don't have 2/3 of their business being a loss leader.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. It's a bad business practice.
You're right. If you're not making money on your labor.
And plus, if you charge more for your labor, you can get better labor.
No kidding.
You can sustain people in that position because you're paying them better.
People.
Yeah. Yeah.
People can grow and they get better. Yep.
Yeah. And
I saw that article. There's an article, I forget what company it was. Some dude with a really long hair, longer than mine even. A number of years ago, he decided he's going to pay everyone in the company. He took a major pay cut as a founder, CEO. Everyone in the company gets $70,000 a year.
Yeah, I remember that.
And, here we are 5 or 6 years on, probably. And the revenue of the company has quadrupled. And their profits have gone through the roof. Why? Because they have better employees.
Well, I mean, a really good indication of that is me. I have incredible continuity of employees. No, I didn't lately. Anyway,
as it turns out.
But I mean, like, I have great continuity of staff because they're paid really well for what they do, for being excellent at what they do, and they don't ever leave because they're being paid well and respected.
Yeah,
and that changes the game. No,
changes everything.
Look, I think the restorers also miss. They miss this key thing that I don't think they understand on a level that's true. Okay.
I think restorers miss several key things often, but yes, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, the world is a better place when the restorers set the scope of the loss.
Yes, it is.
A restorer who tears out the appropriate things and drives accordingly assures that a claim will go well as it goes forward.
Right.
Like they literally can decide by their actions how well the rest of the claim's going to go. I mean, think about it. If they take out this floor, if they take this drywall out, if they do those things that are necessary, oh my God, we see exactly what the scope is, and nobody gets upset. Like I have an appraisal right now.
Okay.
Restorer comes in, removes cabinets, removes tile floor, removes wood floor, removes baseboards, removes 4 feet of drywall on one side of the kitchen wall and one side on the other side of the kitchen wall. That's the scope. It's the whole scope. All we're really fighting about is moving contents because everything else is just obvious. It was direct physical damage.
Do you? I get the feeling that you are living a unique life in this appraisal world, because
I always live in a unique life.
Yes, you do. My experience with I think I've done, let's call it a dozen appraisals. It always still feels very contentious, and I've had a hard time, frankly, getting an agreement on scope. So how do you get that?
Okay. Well, the first thing I do is nobody likes a boss, but everybody likes a leader. So I seek to be the leader of the claim. Okay.
Oh.
So first, I'm going to need to know more about the claim than anybody else. Okay. I'm going to have to gather all the things I can gather. I'm going to probably interview the restorers. I'm going to interview the contractors. I'm going to know a lot about it. And I'm even going to pre-inspect the loss. Okay. About 5 minutes before my opposing shows up, I'm going to send him a Dropbox link in email, which has every single thing I have, everything. He's going to get a huge dump, including in that he's going to get a clean file with a clean ESX. He's going to get my preliminary estimate before we actually walk the loss together. So it's not your position.
Okay.
So basically he gets a link, and basically when you show up, you say, hey man, I just sent you a link. It's my whole claim file. I also sent you the ESX, Matterport, blah, 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 blah. And you just told him, first of all, it's like you gave him a hug, because what you did was you said, I just did your work for you. Okay. That's number one.
Okay.
And now, instead of going into this loss and just bumping around together, you are taking your opposing on a tour
of your scope.
Okay. And so, it changes the metric of how it works. Now,
okay,
you're not going to always bring them to where you want, but I want you to remember one thing. This is really, 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 really key. This is secret sauce here. Okay. You have got to find your weakest argument on that loss, your very weakest argument on the loss.
So you can lead with it.
And you say at some point during that process, you say to your opposing, hey, I can see this going either way. I just can't decide it. What do you think?
It's a softball.
Okay. What you're doing is you're asking them for legitimate help. It needs to be something legitimate, something that could go your way. What you're doing, though, what you're trying to do, and I tell everybody this, and most people just don't believe it. Okay. Your first responsibility in appraisal is to make friends out of your opposing.
That's good advice.
You have got to get some commonality with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Because you're going to see this dude again or do that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. There's a chance that this guy that showed up on that appraisal is polluted all to hell. There's a chance that he can't right above the demand, or there's a chance he can't buy a window to save his life or something. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you make friends out of him, and he's polluted, he'll tell you he's polluted, because then you can work with it.
Mm-hmm.
Appraisal is kind of the holy of holies. So when somebody's polluted and they say it, we can work it out and we just get the umpire to sign it. So so the insured's okay. Our guy's going to be able to live another day, and
because you know the hot buttons, the third rail issues. So you work around it, i.e., you find another way to get the needed funds for the project without touching those hot buttons.
No, you don't need to do that.
No,
you go and touch the hot buttons. You just get the umpire to sign it, and this guy says, "Yeah, sign it." I just can't.
How many times have you been successful in that?
Lots of times.
Lots of times.
Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of times.
Okay.
No, like I had a guy show up on an appraisal the other day, and he said, make sure they replace that window and those windows on the back of the building. I said, it's not in your scope. He says, man, I can't write that. He said, I had to turn my estimate in before I even submitted it to the panel. I can't really go much higher than like 45. And it's obviously about a 65, 70K kind of loss. I said, so there's not a chance in the world you're signing this. He goes, no, I'm not signing that. He says, I just want it to be done right. But I couldn't be mad at him.
No.
Because he was honest. Like, I felt sorry for him. I felt sorry for him because he was like faking his way through it. But my point is simply this: like, you're going to run into the appraisal mafia in some places, okay? And pardon the term, but they're going to be total cocks, okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm dealing with some appraisal mafia right now, and I've got a guy. I told him last week, I'm like, every time I'm around you, you talk to me like I'm an unruly 12-year-old. And last time I checked, I'm an adult.
It's disrespectful.
And I act like an adult most days. So figure out how to talk to me with respect, or we're going to have to have another conversation. And that conversation is going to have something to do with a lawyer and getting you off some claims that I'm working with you. And I never like to be like that. Okay. I never like to be like that.
No one does.
But I mean, like, there is a time where you got to be a little gruff. But look, here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. If you got a guy who's just totally a dick, he's not going to negotiate with you. He's not talking to you. He tells you broad statements like, I'm not paying for anything over 3 days, period. Just say, cool, man. I'm just going to go and get the umpire. And if you see that guy again, you just invite the umpire for day one.
Yep.
So you shorten the process. You shorten the process.
Because
No.
It's coming.
Look, Andy, I want you to try something the next time you have to do an appraisal.
Well, I got one next week. I got one Wednesday.
Okay. I want you to figure out something you have in common with this cat that you're meeting.
Okay.
I want you to find some commonality. I want you to find some commonality with him. Something.
Okay.
You have something common about you. You both live in the same region of the world, and it's freaking beautiful.
Sure.
But I mean, like, something, because if you could do that, if you can make that happen, then what happens is it starts smoothing out all the appraisals you're on, because they start saying, oh, that guy's a really decent guy. He always comes really documented, but he's a really easy guy to work with. That's what you want.
That's important.
Want to say. Like what they say about me is I'm a sweetheart. I'm the nicest guy right up until you break the rules, and then I'll thrash you. You know, no, I just, the other thing you could do on your appraisals, Andy, if you want to be really, really smart about it, on your paperwork, your SOU DOA, your statement of appraisals and statement and designation of umpire, put time frames in it.
Communication time frames, reporting time frames.
You have to turn in your position within 14 days of meeting at the loss. You have to meet at the loss within 20 days of signing this document. You have the umpire has to turn in his award within 30 days after meeting at the loss. Something like that.
Okay.
So you know how long it's going to take to do it, and they'll usually sign it, and then you'll have to remind them about it later.
Right. Remember that thing you signed and didn't read?
No, but it's not. There's nothing wrong with asking professionals to work quickly.
Right.
To work for a reasonable amount.
It prevents these, just like, people going dark, because people go dark, and it's not intentional, but the reality is most of these IAs on the opposing side of the appraisal process get overwhelmed, right? They'll get a whole batch of claims, and this appraisal they were on last month just kind of slips through. And if there's no one holding their feet to the fire,
what'll happen to some of these guys, which I find really interesting, is they'll have some guy that like does his appraisals for like $1,200. Okay. and they'll send the guy like 300 appraisals.
Oh dear.
Okay. So what's going to happen on his appraisals? They're going to take forever because they just loaded him up to a level that he can't handle.
Yeah. And not in a timely fashion,
so,
at least.
No, but the thing that you got to do is you got to collect these people. Okay. You got to collect them. You got to collect a lot of them.
Build a team.
You collect them where they're happy to see you on the next claim. Okay.
Sure.
You collect them, and I'm so committed to the collection that I communicate with them even if I have no work with them.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll call them up and say, "Hey, man, I was on this claim that was kind of like the one you and I settled, and you wouldn't believe what this guy did."
Okay.
Like, I was just really thankful for you after having this experience. But I mean, like, make a friend out of them one way or the other. Call them and ask them a question, something you really want to know.
Okay.
The other thing you can do.
Yeah.
This is super fun.
A little bit.
This is super fun. This is one of my favorite things to do. Okay. Hey, Mr. Opposing Appraiser, as long as they're the carrier guy, say, could you tell me what the reserves were set at?
He's not going to know.
Yes, he is. He has access to the whole claim file, dude. If you really,
do they all usually always have access to the claim file?
Almost always. If they ask for it, they get it.
Okay.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you what else they can do.
So what do you wait? First off, what does knowing the reserve tell you?
The what?
What does knowing the reserve tell you? What does that?
Well, let's say that you have an $80,000 claim, and and it's a 30, and the reserves were set at 35, and the carrier only wrote estimates up to 33. Now you know why they wrote to 33. Now in appraisal, you can say, "Oh, they put that reserve really low. That's why we're here."
Yep. Yeah. The adjuster couldn't possibly write for more because
you can
the reserves
also tell that guy if they're really, really off. If they're really, really off, he might want to call the carrier and get them to move the reserves so they won't get dinged when you turn in the order, the award. But the other thing you can do, that's super fun is you can have the adjuster that you're opposing call the original adjuster on the claim and ask what was the original ask what was in their estimate. Keep in mind that doesn't mean it's the same estimate that was produced, right?
No, probably it's not.
So like when I get people to do that, they'll routinely walk into appraisal and say, "Hey, I'm not going to fight you on the roof." The first guy, the first adjuster, approved the roof, and he had it right. And boom, and it's just done. And just because, and to some degree, it vindicates that first guy. It's
right?
to some
Oh,
degree, it makes him like, oh man, thank God.
100%.
Yeah.
100% it does. That's
And
why I don't do IA work anymore. When I first moved to Bend, I had at the time, did you know, wait, I mean, one more. Did you know you can be a public adjuster in the state of Oregon right now without a license because they destroyed the general adjuster's license. So that's what I had for a long time is a general adjuster's license. So I could be an IA or a PA in Oregon, at least. And so I took on some claims, but they were doing that stuff. They were telling me you can't write for that. You can't include that in your estimate. And here I am at the time coming off of 15 years of restoration experience. You're not going to tell me what I can and can't write for. I got more experience than you, lady, sitting behind a desk in Dallas. But that's why I don't. They'd still take my number and then leave my name on it and just do whatever they wanted with it. I got a call from a guy, huge house, all tile. It's a tile roof. It was a $300,000 roof because it was tile, and he had two broken rafters, and you can't just it's not Legos. You can't just piece those tiles off. Right? If you're in for a dime, you're in for a dollar. Anyway, so I wrote this whole thing up, huge, and he comes back. He calls me because I gave him my card. He calls me and says, "What the?" I mean, he was raring to go. He's going to light me up. And I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! Wait a minute. What did they pay? $60,000." And I told him that wasn't my number, but I'm contractually obligated, through the firm I was working for. I couldn't contractually, I couldn't give him any more information than that. It's dirty.
hey, Andy, do you know why there'll always be meth?
Why? Because there's always going to be crazy.
No, because you can spend $60 and make $500. And that's always going to be too much of a pull for somebody to do it because it takes so little money to make money.
Yep.
It's sort of the same problem.
Yeah. It is,
if I don't pay for 300 roofs, I've probably increased shareholder value by a couple of percent.
Yep. And even if a percentage of those come back and sue us and we lose, we're still winning.
Yeah, we always win.
Always win.
The
house always wins.
Look, I don't want you to be confused though. I see a bunch of carrier folks doing absolutely unbelievably good things.
Sure.
All the time. And I have noted a pattern among some of the IAs here recently where they're wanting to step up their game to another level. I'll give you an example. I have an IA who we were talking in an online conversation. About silica.
Okay. Yep.
And he says, and I say you ought to have silica in every scope you do because it's legit. And we're gonna, if we don't start running
anytime
that protocol,
concrete. Yep.
Yeah. Well, really, if you're cutting drywall
too. Yeah, that's true.
Drywall, tile, pretty much all kind of things in the house. You can't know how much silica is in it, so you have to work it as a protocol. So you just do containment in each area.
Yeah.
You run negative air in each area. You do the work in that area. Do a little HEPA vacuum in that area.
So you don't.
Yeah. And you don't get it up through the whole structure. Because keep in mind, if you don't do it, then OSHA says that you got to do a HEPA sandwich. And what's a HEPA sandwich? Everything. Yeah, on everything. That's a detailed HEPA on this whole place. Then structural clean. And then a HEPA. Then a HEPA.
Yep.
And so like I one time had a $7,000 mitigation scope that had a $23,000 HEPA sandwich.
Yeah.
And so, but he said there's no way I can get him to bite on that. And somebody said to him, "Hey, call your local OSHA guy, take him out for coffee and say, what do you expect to see on these sites for this? What's within OSHA? Get his card, get his name, his email address." Then the next one you run into, you say, such and such told me.
Yep.
At this phone number, at this address, and this email to follow this protocol.
This is how it's done.
And it's paid.
And it's paid. Yeah.
and it's paid. And
That
the
sounds
thing
like
is,
a lot of work, David. It sounds like a lot of work.
it's not that much work. It's not that much work. You only have to do it once, and you can use it over and over again.
That's true.
Hey,
That's
you
true.
want to know? You want to know a great thing that you can do on every single loss. Now, not for mitigation, but for recon, you can do this.
Okay.
So if you're
Okay.
ever going to go into an argument, you can
Every
call up the permitting department and say, could you come tell me what I have to do to get a rebuild, what I have to include in a rebuild permit for this structure? You can't get them to write you a letter.
So what information are they going to require?
So they're going to, so they're going to come out and they're going to say, what are you going to require in order for a permit to be approved by your office?
Okay.
So like,
and they're going to say something. They're going to say we need blueprints.
No.
What else?
They'll say any number of things. But
okay.
But basically, you can take those things, write the notes down when they're telling them, and say that this inspector said that this email address, this phone number, said the following.
Said these things. But the reason you're doing it that way is because none of these building departments have the time or the wherewithal to write actual letters.
They're not going to write you a letter.
They're never going to.
They're not going to write you a letter. No. So, okay. But what you can do is, like, I'll tell you what happened on mine. I got on my loss. I got the building department to come out.
Sure.
And he walks in my house and he looks at me and goes, "You got something to write with?" And he literally says,
"Was he Forrest Gump?"
Yeah. And he says, "We're going to need to take it all out, all of it." He says, "I don't want to see anything but studs here. I want the tubs out. I want the fixtures out. I want the electrical out. I want it all out." And he says, "The windows, gone. The roof, take all that sheathing off because you got to recertify all the trusses."
All the trusses.
And he basically said, and we'll have to do an inspection once you get everything out of here. So we can make sure you aren't leaving anything that's going to kill somebody. And he said, and then he said to me, he goes, "Oh, one more thing." He said, "If they don't hurry up and that metal in that on those trusses starts rusting,
those gusset plates,"
he says, "we're going to take all the trusses out and put them back." He says, "If the all thread that goes, because in Florida you have got all thread at the corners and
the hurricane
at
ties,
the doors." He says, "If the all thread starts to rust, we're going to put this whole place in a dump."
Oh, damn shooting match.
And I told the carrier that.
But I know where you live.
They sent a check right after that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
because
like I said,
want
that's what I'm saying.
Done.
You can't fight City Hall. You can't fight City Hall. But you can do that on lots of losses, and there's nothing untoward about it.
And it's not fancy.
No, you have to you
just got to do the work.
Like, I can't do anything that's unlawful. You understand? Like, you can't ask a contractor to do something unlawful.
Right.
I asked a guy the other day on an appraisal. I was the umpire, and he was complaining about the mitigation.
They all complain about the mitigation.
And I said, so let me see if I can get this straight. I said, these people bought the roof. They signed a contract and and the work is done for $26,000. I said, the mitigation company did the work and has a contract and an invoice for $28,000. You had no problem with the roof as an incurred expense. Where I come from, we don't get to push back incurred expenses, and that is an incurred expense. And they look at you and they're like, well, and I'm like, no, you just think because it's blown in your head that these mitigation guys are doing something wrong. They're shysters. I said, here's the joke of it. I said, if roofers and plumbers and electricians had to document their work like mitigation companies, I said it would cost 3 times more to do the work. And then you would call them shysters too.
It would. That's a great point. That's a great point. We are the only industry with such a high level of required documentation, right? It's not actually required, right? There's nothing in the policy that says you will document your loss to XYZ. We're the only industry that has to play by these. I mean, the level of documentation. You ask a plumber to do that. You're right. He's going to find a very uncomfortable place to shove his wrench. He's not going to do that. There's no way. He's going to tell you to pound sand. Here's my bill. F you, pay me. That's what he's going to say.
Right.
Why don't we? Why haven't we seen somebody, some restorer of size, take a harder stance against this 50 cents on a dollar payment offers on mitigation and costs incurred? Why haven't we seen someone stand up? Is it just too hard?
We have some that quietly do it. We do.
Okay.
And
so they're getting their wins. They're just not. They're not telling the rest of us about it. They're keeping it quiet.
You know, there's a certain group that used to only do carrier work.
Okay.
That does retail work these days. That routinely says, if they get any pushback, they say, "Look, you just need somebody else to do this. We'll pack up."
Yeah.
Like, I'm either going to get my money or I'm not. That same restorer I'm talking about. I did an appraisal for them about a year ago, where they did a $3 million job, and all they weren't paid is $450,000 because the carrier said that they had to pull this the stuff off the shelves. They were all wrapped, so they didn't get any of the soot on them. But they had to take the pallets down so they could clean the shelves, which was part of the protocol. But they said they don't have business personal property coverage, so we're not going to pay for that, which is stupid, because we were removing the business personal property in order to affect the cleaning. And so, like, our appraisal, like, we walked in there, and me and my appraiser, we walk out, we're good with the 450. Yeah, that's good. I mean, like no big deal. And incidentally, by the way, he was polluted. And he called me a week later and said, "I'm polluted." He said, "The carrier told me they don't want me to go over 331.
They just told him a number.
And I said, "You want to get the umpire to sign it?" He's like, "Yes, because I agreed to it and it's the right thing."
Okay, so what if the carriers and those guys caught somebody like us doing that? Do you think there would be doing what? I mean,
oh no, we can be polluted. We can be really polluted
for sure.
Like like you work for a PA, and he says if you don't sign anything, if it's under 80% by my demand.
What gets me is, well, I guess I'm more of a purist in that I came into appraisal.
You are a purist.
I came into appraisal, I want to say untainted, because I didn't have any experience in it. And my first experience in appraisal was a situation where one of my clients, they got pulled into it, and they called me and said, "It looks like they're invoking something called appraisal. What do you know?" And I was like, "I know something. Let's look at it." And I ended up being the appraiser on it. I was like, okay. So I wrote the initial, and I was the appraiser, right? I wrote the initial scope and the dollar amount. But here's the deal: the opposing appraiser was the initial IA who wrote the initial for the carrier.
That's terrible. That's terrible behavior. We got some carriers that do that. It's terrible. No.
I didn't know any better, but they should have known better.
But like when those people show up, we're just going to the umpire. That's all that's happened. It's just going to the umpire.
But you're rolling the dice, aren't you? Because the first thing you got to do is this is what I want to talk to you about. This is a good point. You've got to agree on an umpire. And if they are if they're taking orders from the carrier is going to tell them, "Here's your list of umpires that you can sign with." So talk to me about court-appointed umpires. I've never done it. I've never had experience with court-appointed.
Okay. First of all, you can get an umpire assigned that's not on that carrier's mind. that's a decent umpire, or you can get somebody from your list, but you have to just be very persistent about it. The problem with going court appointed,
I'm sure there's more than one,
is one, the carrier has a much better legal budget than you do, and they do this on the regular. So they have a small group of really creepy people often that are their umpires. Now, you can, however, you have your counsel go in with a list, and sometimes they'll pick off your list or the other people's list, or they'll come up with one of their own.
But you gotta spend some money to do that, right? You just said the word counsel. Your counsel. Yeah, that costs money.
I have a way for you to work around it. Go to the county next door to you, call the clerk of court, and say, can you tell me who the last appointed umpire was from the court? And you check to see if that's a truly heinous person or not. Okay?
Okay.
And if that's not a heinous person, then you say to your opposing, I suggest we go to the county next door and get the last court appointed that they had, so we don't have to get involved in that whole rigmarole. And I've had them in the high 70s say okay to that.
Okay. That's not bad. Okay. And that way you're able to kind of pre-qualify it, and you're saving the costs of actually going through the process. Because then I'm assuming at that point you're just doing an in run. You're calling the guy directly because his number's in the book, right? You're going to just go right to him.
Right. Yeah. And if you're really good about it, you'll pick a couple of counties and do the same thing. And so you can give your opposing multiple choices for those that, but it's the problem with court appointed too is often they give you a judge, a retired judge.
And they don't know insurance.
Well, the problem is you have to act more like you're pleading a case with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it changes the complexion of the appraisal.
It does.
What I always tell people, if you appoint a judge, it's going to make your appraisal really expensive because I'm going to have to work my ass off.
Yep. So much time. Now,
this is the other thing to remember right now. Just remember, I keep saying it, and you got to remember it. Appraisers and umpires are on the legal menu. You need to start saying to your meaning there are those people in the world who say that appraisers and umpires operate with impunity. They have no liability. That's poppycock. That's not true. Okay. And
of course
so what happens is if an appraisal panel goes out and breaks the rules of like, kind, and quality, or direct physical damage,
like, kind, and quality, direct physical damage.
If they break the rules of those, which are the two basic tenets of what we do in the business, right?
Okay. Yep.
Then they hold liability because they've held themselves out as a professional. So like, I'll give you an example. One that I was on, well, I wasn't on, somebody in my office was on it. This guy's got bad pecs. Okay. Like there's a formulary of pecs.
I was like, man, is he juicing? Is he lifting all that away?
So like he got three leaks the same day from his plumbing. Stuff that doesn't happen. He called the plumber, and the plumber said, pecs. Yeah, and says, you got this bad pecs. He says, I can't fix it. And he called the carrier, and the carrier told him pound sand, they weren't going to pay for that. And so he told the plumber, he said, can you do something temporarily while I work this out? Because they're not going to let me go live anywhere. And I got to have water. And anyway, so they put up just like these plastic pipes in the attic, and they just rerun it. And the guy told him, he says, look, it's your cold water's going to be like 120 degrees when it's 80 degrees outside. You know, if it gets cold, none of it's going to work. You know, it's a temporary solution. Okay. The umpire comes in and says, that's the way my house is done. Cause obviously he had his house DR Hortoned, but he actually had real piping, you know? Okay. And so he awarded the temporary plumbing as a permanent solution.
Oh, God.
So going through the attic rather than going through the slab. So about 5 minutes after that appraisal,
had another break.
Somebody asked him for his E&O coverage, and his E&O coverage paid out $78,000 without a suit.
Because he gave a professional opinion that he wasn't licensed to give.
Well, it wasn't that he wasn't licensed to give it. He violated the rules of like, kind, and quality. That is a basic premise, because what is it? What is an insurance policy? It's a betterment policy, right? As good or better not worse, but functional. And so all I'm saying is, like,
that fix was worse.
you can say to your panel sometimes, "Hey guys, let's get this right. I don't want to get sued."
Yeah. It's
And
legit.
do you know what happens when you say that? They all go, "Oh wait, I could be liable. Let's do this right." And it's subtle. It's subtle.
It's subtle, but
say things like, "My
So,
wife
all right,
will kill
what
me
was-
if I get sued."
yeah, exactly. So like, kind, and quality, and what was the other thing?
Direct physical damage.
Direct physical damage. All right, those are direct physical.
Well, I mean, you think about it. Even if you look at the restorers, they're always dealing with direct physical damage. That's what they're proving.
The panel, does a panel ever get into proximate cause, or should the panel ever get into causation, proximate cause?
It depends on where you are. Like if you were in
State to
Florida, yeah.
Okay.
If you were in, but everywhere is different.
Okay.
But the catch is that you almost always have the proximate cause already handled within the peril itself.
Yeah, assuming the claim hasn't been denied. Yeah, and a denied claim doesn't go to appraisal anyway. So yeah.
No, it usually doesn't. Unless they have a lawsuit and they make the decision to go to appraisal within
go
that.
to appraisal pre-suit. Okay. Yep.
No, but it's I'm telling you, it's a. I used to have somebody that worked with me who said that when they watched me do this work, they said it was like a dance. That like if you want to know where I'm going with something, I'm going to always ask you a theology question.
Mm-hmm.
We got to get going, but there's one thing that I wanted to ask you about.
Okay, I'll answer quickly.
An insured has the responsibility, duties after loss.
Okay.
To contain the loss, right? To contain or to limit the loss.
Prevent further damage. Yep.
Prevent further damage. So you have ABC Restoration Company come out there, and they see all the things going on there, and they drop some equipment, write up a scope, send it over to the insurance company, and say, "Hey, we need to get started on this, but we're going to run this drying equipment to stabilize this place while we wait for you."
Mm-hmm.
Now, somebody's going to say sometime that you were just running the numbers up. Okay.
Sure. Right.
But if the job behind that was,
yes.
But if the job behind that $75,000, and if you don't get it approved on the front side that they're going to pay you $20,000 for it, it's a bad business decision for you to go ahead and do that work.
Yeah.
You could kill your business doing that. So the only thing you can do, because see, Miss Smith still has to contain her loss. So you can't just take it out because she's still got to contain her loss, right? So my point is simply this. Is there any magic to explain this to people in a way that they can understand? Because my thing is, I think you got to tell a carrier, "Hey, you're spending $652 a day in stabilization. Please hurry." But I mean,
I think what we have here is a failure to communicate. I don't want to disparage. I don't want to do broad brush, but there are a non-trivial number of restores who couldn't tell you what a run rate is.
I'm aware of this.
So if you can't come up with that number, it's real. So yeah, I think that's a great. I've come full circle professionally on this. Because if you were to ask me that same question 7 years ago, I would have been just firing off the bird and saying, screw the carrier, they're not owed jack. But guess what? That attitude doesn't get restorers paid any faster. And that's what we're talking about here. How do we get paid faster? And how do we get paid a fair amount for the work that we're doing? I'm with you 100%. Don't do the work. Set it up. Try to do the bare bones mitigation, but then immediately tell the carrier, this is what we're doing, this is how long we think it's going to take, and this is how long we think it's going to cost. And that communication cadence becomes your defense in the end.
I think that at the end of the day, if we could just teach these guys nothing but your burn rate, your burn rate, your burn rate, your burn rate, to know that. If you just did that one thing, if you communicated that one thing,
man, yeah,
because let's face it, if you're burning 5K a day and the guy on the other end of the line sees 5K a day for the next 7 days, he's going to run somewhere and go, hey, we're going to spend about 35K on this.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's powerful.
It is. I agree.
I had a client call me and say, I need a restore in such and such area. It was in Florida. And I called this guy that I know that's really good and knows lots of restorers. And I said, hey, I need a restorer in this area. Who you want to recommend? He goes, I can't recommend you anybody. I said, nobody? There's hundreds of them. He goes,
not with a straight face.
No, I can't do that.
Sorry.
And I thought, oh my God, that's terrible.
It is.
It's utterly terrible.
It's true. It hurts because it's true. Well, David, thank you so much, man. It's been way too long.
Good. It's so good to see you, brother. And I'm glad to see. Yeah. I'm glad to see that you're doing well, swinging for the rafters.
We are.
And you know, it's I think it's going to be a good year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
I think it is. But hey, man, you take care of yourself.
Will do. Don't be a stranger.
All right, man. Peace, brother.